Just recently, Elias Iagnemma has climbed what he proposes is the world's first V18 or 9A plus boulder, and I really can't describe how outrageous that is. So this boulder is called Exodia, it's in Piemonte in Italy, and it took Elias 215 sessions over 4 years to finally send it. Elias describes the boulder as broken into two parts, so we have a hard V14 into a knee bar rest, then followed by a V16. Sounds hard. I don't think there's been any footage of the send yet. I think we have footage of his attempts, but 211 sessions over 4 years, so that's like a weekly session for 4 years straight. So maximum effort here. So is this V18? Well, Elias might know. He's climbed Burden of Dreams, the world's first V17, which was only first ascended 9 years ago, by the way. He's bagged the first ascent on his own V17 and he's climbed multiple V16s. So this guy knows what he's talking about. He is a bleeding edge rock climber, one of the best ever. And Elias knows fine well that as soon as he publicly announces V18, Will Bosey, Simon Lorenzi, Aidan Roberts, they're on Skyscanner booking flights to Piemonte to give it a try. And the question on everyone's lips is this actually V18 or is this going to get downgraded? To give it a full V grade more than Burden of Dreams, which he's also climbed, means that he really believes that this is substantially more difficult than other V17 boulders. By the way, UKC did a video on this kind of breaking the news, and the comments on this video are just golden. We have a lot of armchair downgraders here. Homeboy is about to be the next James Pearson. Brutal. 40-second no hand rest does not a 9A plus make. People are calling him out for sitting high on Burden of Dreams. The irony of saying sit starts are important while sitting as high as possible on Burden. Where is the video evidence? It ain't a boulder if there's a rest. This seems like a clout grab to me. I actually hope this gets downgraded. There's a no hands rest in the middle, just nonsense. People are quick to just shoot you down, man. This guy's climbed multiple 9A boulders and 9A plus sport. I think if he says it's V18, we've got to listen to what he says. At least go and try it, you know?
Mike's climbing the very hardest grade.
I feel like this is an actual dream.
Pushing the margins.
Not me, but just send our resident Scottish crusher out there to give it a grade. I was lucky enough to actually feel and see the replica of Burden of Dreams at Lattice in Sheffield, like a 3D printed replica of the holds set at the same angle. And I remember thinking when I was feeling the holds that this has got to be the human limit for climbing. Like, surely no one can ever climb on holds worse than this on this steepness of ground. When you see people climbing 9A plus V17 boulders, like, I can't help but think, surely we can't go any harder than this. If you haven't seen Mel's film of Simon Lorenzi sending Sudan Soul 9A, go watch it, because that is a great film and it really goes into what is involved in climbing 9A boulders. I mean, the effort this guy puts in is beyond human, and he even goes as far as like making his own shoes, and it really does look like it just could not ever be harder than that boulder. It's an incredible film, go watch it. Because if we think about it, there is actually a limit, right? There is going to be a point where humans just can't climb any harder in our current form. We could add more moves in to make it longer, but then we're just venturing into free solo sport route climbing territory, so the moves actually have to get harder. But like, how much harder can they actually get? Because eventually holds will be so poor, it'll be so steep that it's just literally impossible. So the question is, how close are we to the limit? Are we already there? And why does any of this even matter to normies like me and you? Let's talk about it. But before we go any further on this topic, a quick word from our sponsor, Frictitious Climbing. This is a brand new product from Frictitious Climbing. This is called the DoorMount Pro. It's actually not a replacement for the original doorway mount with a full-size hangboard. If you want the ultimate in versatility, that's still the way to go. A full-size hangboard that you can remove with the swap plates. You can put on slopers, you can put on any holes you like, and you can have as many edges as you could ever hope for. The DoorMount Pro instead is the most secure portable system if you want to train really, really hard. So if space is a premium and you live in like an apartment, or you really need to pack this away every time after you train so that it doesn't get in the way, then this is the system for you. Because look how tiny a proper hangboard and setup can be if you actually pack it away. That is nothing at all. This part here is engineered from steel and aluminium and leaves absolutely no damage on the door, and it will fit most door frames. The way it's designed is it places the load on the structural part above your door frame. So you're not actually hanging from the trim of your door frame, you're hanging from the part above that, the structural strong part. So currently there's 2 hangboards that fit with the DoorMount Pro, the 5 and the 7. The 5 has the most commonly used edges, 30, 20 and 15, along with slopers and a jug for pull-ups as well. Whereas the 7 has a bigger range of edges going all the way down to 10 millimeters. So if you're interested in getting yourself a fictitious DoorMount Pro for a limited time only, when you order one of these products, you get a free bag of fictitious chalk, which is fantastic by the way, and free shipping in the USA. So go check out Fictitious, the link is down below. Up until 1954, doctors and athletes believed it was physiologically impossible to run a mile in under 4 minutes. The consensus was that no matter how perfectly built you were for running and how physically fit you were, there was just simply no way that a human could run that fast for 1 mile. And you can kind of see where this idea came from, because eventually there will be a time set by a human that no one will ever beat. There is actually a limit. For example, we can't just keep on breaking records until we're running a mile in like 60 seconds. That is clearly impossible. And so doctors hypothesized that the limit for running a mile was somewhere above 4 minutes. But in 1954, Sir Roger Bannister proved that athletes, doctors and pundits were incorrect by running a sub 4 minute mile, a 3:59, beating the current world record for the mile run by a clean 2 seconds. And he showed that the limit for running a mile was actually way further down the line than had previously been hypothesized. But what's really interesting is what happened just after that record was broken. So the previous record for a sub 4 minute mile was set 9 years before that in 1945. It was a 4:01.4. Then Bannister comes and smashes it by 2 seconds. And then 46 days later, John Landy crushes it by another 1.5 seconds. 46 days later. Just think about that. The record stood for 9 years and then was beat by a substantial margin twice in 46 days. Since then, running a 4 minute mile has become almost routine. The current world record is a 3:43, which was set in 1999. And for example, if I ran the 5th Avenue Mile, which is a race in New York, a mile-long race, if I ran that now and did a 4 minute mile, which is an absolutely incredible time, I would have finished 23rd place. And if I won the race with an unbelievable 3:48, I would have received $5,000 in compensation, which wouldn't even cover my flights and accommodation for my trip to New York. I mean, we've got to the point that high school juniors are now running a mile in under 4 minutes. The point I'm trying to make is that the sport that is the easiest to measure, that is just running, just timing a run, just 70 years ago, doctors, pundits, other athletes were miles off when they proposed what the limit might be. And in the years since the 4 minute mile was achieved, thousands of people have gone on to accomplish this feat. To the point where we've got kids coming out of maths class at 3 o'clock and going on to do something that their great-grandparents would have received a knighthood for. What's happened here is someone has raised the bar for what's achievable, and as a result, everybody got a little bit better at running. The style, intensity and frequency of training changed, nutrition changed, coaching changed, outreach and accessibility changed, training equipment improved, and all of this stuff trickled down from the elites down to Joe Public until eventually everyone is just way better at running because of like one guy. I'm not just talking about people who are really good at running, I'm talking about everybody. Like the guy who's running his first 5k ever, he's better because he knows a little bit more about running because of the elites who have broken records. And we can see a similar thing happening in climbing. For example, the first AA sport route was only climbed in 1979, but just 12 years later, people are climbing 9A sport. The first proposed V6 or 7A boulder was 1953, and back then, at that time, people were only climbing 60 plus routes. An amateur like me, an absolute punter, could be transported back to 1950, and people would think I'm a pretty good climber, like very good climber. But now I can go to the gym and see people with jobs, not professional climbers, sending 8A boulders where just 40 years ago that would have made them like super elite, cutting edge athletes. I think right now we as climbers are living through a kind of golden period in our sport where every other year our preconceived notions of what is possible is shattered. I mean, just a couple of days ago, Adam Ondra put up a video of him flashing an 8C V15 boulder. Flashing 8C. And all this stuff is awesome, but how do I actually get better by some guy climbing V8 decades ago? In 1979, a guy called Tony Yaniro climbed what was proposed to be the first 8A sport route. And his ascent was heavily criticised by the climbing community for bad ethics. So what were these so-called bad ethics that he employed? Well, he trained and he practiced, which as far as I can tell in 1979 were banned.
Back then, it was also considered bad style to hang dog. The way you were supposed to do it, as soon as you fall, you let go, you don't even look at it, you lower down and pull your rope. And so what I did was felt out the crack, looked at it, went home, cut wood and started making replicas.
He built a replica in his house off the crack and practiced those specific movements, which in the 70s just no one had thought to do. But his style of like training and working the route, unheard of in the 70s, is now commonplace. Like very rarely do you see someone working a really, really hard route from the ground up, falling and just pulling the rope and going again. Most people hand dog their way up. I mean, that's certainly what I do. That's what it's called, where you kind of weight the rope and then feel the holds and practice and then work sections of the route, break it down to get a red point. But in the 70s, this just wasn't done. Nowadays, people work boulders on routes. People are 3D printing holds so they can practice on replicas. And Yaniro kind of pioneered this more focused and disciplined way of working routes. And since then, sport climbing grades have just went through the roof. Because of this change in attitude towards training, now people like me can walk into any climbing gym and practice on the moonboard, on the kilter board. I can use a training app that's written by people who know how to train. I can see a physio who specialises just in finger injuries. I've got hangboards in my kitchen. I've got grippy shoes made out of sticky rubber with patches on them for heel hooks and toe hooks. There's more boulders developed and routes bolted than ever before, and I can walk into a gym in any major city and practice on routes and boulders that are reset every 6 weeks. All of this stuff has allowed me, a total punter, to get to a level that 60 or 70 years ago would have been considered elite. And I started training in my 30s. And isn't that just a wonderful thing? I can enjoy so much more of climbing because of the tools provided to me, pioneered by people crushing it at the bleeding edge decades ago. So right now in climbing, from where I'm sitting, just a spectator, it really looks like 9A plus boulder V18 and 9C sport routes really is the limit. But I really need to remind myself not to be as presumptuous as doctors and other athletes were in 1954. Maybe in 20 years, comp kids will be sending V18s daily at the gym. It doesn't seem like that should be possible, but going by history and with how young climbing is as a sport and how much it's exploded in the last 5 years, maybe we're at that 4-minute mile is impossible point where it really does seem like we're at the limit, but really we're miles away. And what does this mean for us normies? Well, a rising tide raises all boats. Somehow, the trickle-down effect will work its way down to us and will change something about our training, our nutrition, our attitudes, or our style of training, and we'll all get stronger as a community because of those guys at the bleeding edge. And that's why I'm so excited about this potential new V18. So congrats to Elias. I really hope it stays at V18. I hope someone else gets out to Italy, perhaps even this season, and gives it a go and confirms the grade. Either way, I just want to see footage of somebody crushing this hard boulder. I hope you enjoyed this kind of style of video. I didn't actually do any climbing in this one. Let me know what you think in the comments. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Peace.